Hey there. I decided to make a little diorama with a picture frame and a little plastic camper to go with my little zombie army guys that I made last week. It came out really good because it's so easy to do. I mean, I'm a scratch builder, but there's no way I'm going to scratch build a vehicle because I don't think I'd be able to do it. So I just bought a little toy camper and I kind of modified it and mostly just painted it and sanded it to make it look really grungy and apocalyptic, and it came out really good. It was a lot of fun making this, so I hope you get something out of it and I hope you enjoy the video. I cut a piece of XPS foam to fit into the picture frame. I just flipped it over and I pulled the stand off it and put it back in and glued it down. To make the sign, I used a couple of, I think they're plywood coasters, and I glued them down on a sheet of plastic. This is the plastic that came with the frame as well. I used this quite a bit, and I glue it down on the plastic because it just stops the objects from sticking to everything else but each other. I peeled the back off a piece of cardboard to expose all the corrugations, just to make the back of the sign so it looks like corrugated iron. I just glued it down with a nice thick water-based glue. I just made the frame for the billboard sign out of some coffee stirrers. I glued them down and gave them a light spray with some black spray paint, and then just a grey dry brushing over it so I can start making it look like it's made of iron. I did this really roughly, but I want it to be inconsistent so it's not too even. Just checking out where I'm going to put the camper and then where I'm going to draw in the road, and I use just a skewer to draw in cracks in the road and that sort of thing. Just trying to make everything look like it's really, really weathered. I use the same acrylic grey on the road as I did on the sign. Do make sure it's acrylic or it'll dissolve your foam. That black that's on that foam too, that's an acrylic as well. I didn't show myself doing it. And the same grey on the billboard frame. I did a brown wash on this first. I used my little lump of concrete just to rough the road up a bit, make it look damaged from time. Little holes and things in the cracks and everywhere. I ran out of ink, so I'm just making an acrylic wash with some dark brown and black paint, and then just let it soak in, do its thing. Gives it a really nice natural effect. I did this a few times, as once it soaks in, it dissipates and disappears a little bit, but then you can just add it to little places that you want more and more depth and darkness, like in the cracks, which is nice. Same with the base of the frame, just make it look dirty and weathered. I also did the wash in all the little corners and areas where there'd be build-up of moisture and dirt. I've drawn some lines into the road just to help mark out where I want the edges to be. And to do the lines down the centre, instead of trying to freehand it, I just used a centimetre ruler between each line and then just sticky tape them together to try and make them as even as possible. And I just sort of did every second centimetre. But this wasn't the neatest thing I've ever done, but you know, this is apocalyptic, so if it's messy, it's it's, you know, it's a good thing. It wasn't the most effective thing I've ever done, but it was a pretty basic guide that kept me in line and kept the dotted lines the right length, so that was all right. To make like skid marks on the road, I just used a pencil, a soft black pencil, and I used the wheels just so they'd be aligned at somewhat the right distance, and then I just gently put them in. I did a few extra ones as well. Kind of nice to sort of busy up the base. I used a clear acrylic glue just to put some soil down. I did this kind of sporadically. I didn't want it perfectly laying out. Just sort of, you know, bits missing here and there, so you'd have the paint beneath exposed as a flatter surface. Sort of made it a little more of a texture than just a layer of dirt. I also made sure I went out onto the road a little bit, try and make it uneven. There's little lumps of grass in there, I can see them. I'll have to pick them off. On the front of the billboard, I just printed out an image that I wanted to use, and I glued it down and yeah, pretty much destroyed it with graffiti and put these little tiny decals on there. I printed them out as well. I don't know what video game they're off, but they're off a game of some sort. I'm sure they're not actually missing people. I hope they're not. And I just, you know, glued them down and dirtied them up and just, yeah, weathered them as well. Everything is just really made very, very grimy looking. There's an E missing off there. Oh geez, I'll put it in later. Little biohazard sign. Another missing person. That one looks more genuine. I don't know. That's the base ready to go. I like those tire marks. They look really good. I do have some static grass that I put down. I didn't show myself doing it, but you just put down some glue and then you use your applicator and lay it on there. There's not much to show with that. The little camper, I pulled it all apart. Wanted to make sure I darkened it up on the inside, which is really important. I had to sand every part of it as well, inside and out. Took the windscreen out. And I sanded it almost completely off, all the paint and everything. Made it nice and rough so paint will adhere to it later. I used my lump of concrete again. I just sort of put some rough scratches. I don't have a Dremel tool or anything, so I just did it with the concrete. And I knocked that window out and took this bizarre looking little bike off. And then I sprayed it with some black spray paint. The paint came out on the outside as well, which actually worked out quite good because it dirtied it up for me on these parts here. Instead of having to put black down, the paint was already there from the inside. That was my first layer to put down rust. So I just put down some brown acrylic on top of the black, just to make that sort of dark and older looking rust that would be in the lowest part or the deepest part of it. I used an extremely rough little brush for this. I used a red ochre for the next layer of rust. I just did it in a smaller sort of area, just sort of working inward with each layer of colour that lightened as it went up. I didn't have video of showing the back of the billboard being done with rust, but it's exactly the same sort of process as this, and the same colours on top of that grey dry brush that I put down. There's an older video that I did, like a dunny roof and stuff like that. It's all the same process with rust, but I'm sure you guys know that anyway. Fingers are excellent tools when painting, I find. Very good for blending. It's starting to look quite good now. Just applying it anywhere I think there would be rust. Every part of the camper, except for the cab, which is made of some sort of steel, all the plastic, I used a plastic primer on it as well, just to make sure that the paint would adhere after I had stripped it down. I'm just using a yellow ochre just to make the really light rust now. Doesn't look too bad. I painted the inside really roughly because you're not really going to be able to see inside it. And there's one of the zombies that I made from, he's got a pretty bad looking head on him. He's a bit rough, so I put him inside the camper. He looks quite animated in there, I like it. And the bike, I'm not going to be able to make the bike work. It's clunky and odd looking, so I gave it the flick and just filled the holes in the back. Started placing these little guys around so I could see the sort of scene that I wanted to make, or the storyline I wanted to go with. And I knew how many I would be able to work with and fix up ready to finish up this diorama. I made some little broken windows out of the plastic that came with this, that was for the frame. It was perfect plastic. I just cut it with some scissors, the shape that I wanted, and then I scratched it up with a knife blade. These were fiddly to glue in. I got really, really good at gluing bits of plastic to my fingers from doing this. It was amazing. They look really good once you get them in. It sort of adds a much more realistic effect. Another little decal I just stuck on the back, which I dirtied up later with a brown wash. I did that with everything though. Green pencil to make sort of a mossy sort of mould effect. And to do these tyres, I used a silver pencil. These pencils are all soft and it's so perfect. I got the most perfectly fine line. I could just spin the wheel around on the rim and then it just, yeah, it was excellent for this really, really fine detailing work, far better than a paintbrush. The little leftover pieces of plastic from where I'd cut the windows, they snapped so easily. I just made sure that I used the nice little shaped pieces with little cracks in them and able to lay them down. Put this little fella in a tyre, what's left of him. And more little posters, which of course were dirtied up later. Everything could have kind of had a wash and some red ochre to look like blood applied to it. And there's those little bits of broken glass or broken plastic. And that's it all done. That was good fun, this one. I really enjoyed it. I've put down some pictures so you could see these before the video at the end, so you could get a good look because it's such a small piece. I really enjoyed this. I hope you enjoyed it too, and I'll see you next time.
That boy is Benny